Hello, hello. Okay, let's see. I'm here. I was running to get upstairs in record time just to make sure I got on here right. And because Dr. Shelby Harris is going to be joining me at the Sleep Doc, and we're going to be talking about sleep and the lack of we often get during this time in life. So let me see where she is so I can bring her in and let me just see. Sorry. I always want to be that person that like gets it done real quick and it never happens. Anyway, if you have some questions for her, send them over and I will make sure that we address as many as we can because I don't know, I always have tons of questions about everything, but I met her while I was working on my book and we had this just incredible conversation and there we go. On IG Live too, and just get some things going, especially about sleep during menopause. My issue, I never sleep anymore. Yeah, I get it. Hi there, how are you?
Hi, Tamsen. Nice to
See you. Good, I'm so good. I'm already seeing the questions. I'm trying to sleep. I can't sleep. And I went, okay, we got the questions. I'm so glad. I've been thinking, how is your week going? First of all, let's start there.
It's going great, thank you. My kids are back from sleepaway camp, so I'm just like trying to get back into the groove of life. So.
Oh gosh. Oh my God. Well, I know you have your hands full. Thank you for the time. I'm glad we did this.
Thank you.
So I after we got off the phone, I guess it was last week or the week before, I was like, I'm so excited that we're going to keep talking about this because I feel like I get so many of these questions in my inbox and we have to address them. And it's actually all ages, but we're really talking about peri-menopause and menopause. And I do think that's one of the first things that I noticed anyway, when I go back and think about it, even though I didn't realize it was going on. So do you mind if I start running into some questions and then we can talk through them?
Sure.
All right. So, for those of you that don't know, Dr. Harris is just incredible in terms of sleep, but we met on a panel and I don't remember what it was exactly that you said. I think it was just how you broke it all down and made it easy and made us realize that it's very normal and there's a reason for it and there are ways to deal with it.
Thank you. Yes. It's not, oh, this is what happens as you get older and you just should ignore it and just kind of live with it. Don't live with it. Just know that it's normal, like you said, but don't live with it. There's things
So let's talk about, and I don't know which one you want to address first, so I'm going to give it to you to do, but like there's the not being able to fall asleep. Mm-hmm. And then there is Glow ML is saying, what do I do if I can fall asleep, but then wake up 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, can't get back to sleep? And we probably all experienced both, but can you kind of just separate those two out if they deserve to be separated out and talk about how to handle those?
So I think sometimes the falling asleep issue for some people can be because they just don't, a lot of times women especially, we're going, that we don't allow ourselves time to like have our brain decompress a little bit. We're just doing, and then it's like, okay, I gotta go to bed now. Or we're then like trying to, that revenge bedtime procrastination everyone's talking about, we're like stealing the screen back and like just watching things in our face. All things that make it hard for us to process the day. So it's really about going to bed, winding down, turning it down like a dimmer switch, as opposed to the on-off switch. That's really, really important for a lot of people. Sometimes, believe it or not, people go to bed, women especially, will go to bed at a time maybe their significant other might be going to bed, and they have different actual circadian rhythms. So sometimes women actually, if they go to bed a little later, they time it better and fall asleep faster, as opposed to like going to bed earlier with other people and then just lying there awake trying to fall asleep. So it's the timing of it and the decompressing is important for the falling.
That was me Sunday night. So when you talk about the fact that you've not set up some kind of routine, and I know that everyone's got different ways that they do it, but I agree with you. Like it's very hard, and I think we're all guilty of it. Is that we go, okay, I ate dinner, I cleaned up, I'm gonna get my makeup off, I'm going to bed. And then we're like, okay, I'm in bed now. I expect myself to just do what I know how to do best and fall asleep. Does that also cause you to continue to wake up throughout the night too, if you do it that way?
So there can be a number of reasons why people have trouble falling asleep, especially with the awakening in the middle of the night. One of the biggest things I see, especially in women in this range, this age range, can be hot flashes, night sweats, all that stuff. It can also be if you didn't get what was on your brain out of your brain before bed, you might fall sleepy enough to fall asleep with it, but then you might wake up in the middle of the night and now it's almost like you took a nap, and you wake up, whatever was on your brain before bed is now there even more. So it's that wind down is actually kind of important for people, but it doesn't have to be this luxurious hour-long thing.
Right.
Even
Right.
10, 20 minutes for a lot of people is enough some nights.
What do you suggest for the wind down? You know, I know that we talk a lot about light and how it affects things. We talk about you know, how you have to relax and not have the screens all over the place. Though I don't know that we're ever going to remove. I know everyone's going to take their phone and plug it in the other room and stay away. Like, we know that's probably not going to happen. So, but what can you do if you want to say, look, I can't go to the big extreme, but I can kind of get there if you give me a few things that are kind of simple?
Yeah, the biggest things, really, in my opinion, are really just trying to either do a to-do list, right? I have my to-do list on my phone. So the first hour before bed, I write down all the things, I update my to-do list to at least process that part in like my inbox files that are open, get that done.
Good.
And then the thing, I mean, I do think screens are, for some people, here to stay, but the more you can get rid of them, the better. So if you want to watch something on your phone, fine. Just be mindful of what you're looking at too. So is the phone right in your face? Can you put it a little further away? Dim it a bit. And also, are you looking at text? Are you looking at social media? Is all that stuff there? Yeah. So maybe, you know, listen to a podcast, watch a show. I have a lot of patients that like to watch like old shows like The Office and Friends, things that are just kind of not too stimulating. And then try to leave a little buffer of like 10 minutes before going to bed while you try to put your phone down. So try to do that is a more realistic way of doing it, I think. And I do stretches. I just do like yoga stretches before bed too.
Outside of the bed, or just like kind of laying in bed stretching outside of bed?
Like people are always fascinated what I do for a wind down routine for some reason.
Of course.
There is no, if I tell you what I did, it not work for someone else. It's whatever you find enjoyable. Right. Bathroom, I get ready, and then I go outside and I do some stretching because I'm a big runner, so I'm like so tight. So I do a lot of stretching for about 10-15 minutes, and then I get in bed and I maybe read a magazine. I do something quick on my phone or whatever it is, but I try to put the phone away after a little while, read for 10-15 minutes, and then I go to sleep. It doesn't have to be so rigid like a lot of people.
Well, I think people think like, give me the list of 10 things. I'm going to do all those 10 things, and it's going to be, and then I'm going to fall right to sleep. And I'll tell you, I go back and forth with it. Sunday night, I was like winding, like constantly, it was going around and around. And then my husband fell asleep, and I'm like, seriously, you're asleep now? And now I'm on this like contest to get to sleep. And that's terrible. All right, I want to get to some of these questions. Robin says, I had a radical hysterectomy post-menopause, and now I have an acute insomnia. Is it common, and do you recommend an estrogen patch or bioidentical?
I think, yes, it is common. We see this a lot of times. This would definitely be a discussion to be having with a sleep specialist, with a gynecologist, about what you might want to consider, depending upon the situation. HRT can be used. And then also we do like cognitive behavior therapy. CBT is my area of specialty, and that will for some women as well.
Let's talk a little bit about CBT, because I was confused about it last time I talked to you. I'm like, what? And how long it takes? Because you said this isn't like a big drawn out process.
No, it's really 2 to 12 sessions max. The most are like 4 to 8 sessions. I don't even see people weekly. It's every 2 weeks, and it's really very behaviorally focused. So I have people track their on a diary. I change their bedtimes and wake times to try and help them fall asleep faster, as opposed to that like kind of staying in bed trying to force sleep to happen. We do things with what are you doing in bed? How education about sleep is super important, because it wakes up at night. Some people just get more anxious about waking up than others. So teaching you what normal sleep looks like, and then also doing mindfulness or challenging your thoughts about sleep that might be impacting how you feel the next day, or putting that pressure on yourself to sleep. And it's a very guided treatment that's very short term. And it's the first line treatment for insomnia, believe it or not, more than hormone replacement, more than you actually recommend that #1 in the Sleep Medicine Society and the NAMS, National Association for Menopause. So
CBT.
we use North American Menopause Society. Sorry. Yeah, we do it a lot. It's really very evidence-based.
So if you go through something like that, you will alter certain things, certain behaviors. And then we're not talking about anything that's medically attached to that, correct? In terms of a sleep aid or anything. Is there something in particular that you recommend with sleep aids? I think somebody has so many questions on here. Let me just get to that one really fast. I'm sorry. Was it Pro? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw Prep. I mean, that's really,
Okay.
it's all a question to be having when it comes to any of that stuff with your doctor, because there are certain medications, hormone replacement, that is more appropriate for certain people. Other people, it could be, we use off-label antidepressants. We might use things like Ambien and Sonata, like those. And then there, you know, we try to treat people with the least amount of medication possible, which is what the psychologist who specializes in sleep. But then if it's not enough, then we go to other routes, depending upon what it might be that we need to add in. And it can be very effective, but everyone's a little different. Everyone has different side effects. So it's always a conversation to be had with the doctor. And then supplements are a big question I get all the time too. Sometimes we'll use melatonin. We'll use low, like I see here, valerian tea, valerian root is something that some people use. The most data we have, which still isn't a lot, is melatonin. And we'll use like 3 to 5 milligrams about an hour before bed. Don't use more than 5 milligrams. If you're using more than that, it's probably not working for you.
Well, that's what I was wondering about. It's funny because you know, a lot of people say, well, I just get off the shelf in the drugstore. How bad can it be for me? It's not a prescription, but you know, they sell up to 10 milligrams, probably more. It's not really that regulated in so many ways, but if you say 3 to 5, and that should be your max, but start at the lowest dose possible, right?
Yeah. And like some people will need more than 5, but it's unusual. Like if more is not always what works when it comes to melatonin. 3 to 5 is usually what is kind of the most effective if it's going to do anything. And like CBD, I'm seeing a lot of questions about CBD popping up. CBD, CBD and THC, we just don't have that much research on it yet, unfortunately. Yeah, and then gabapentin was one other question I saw that popped up. That's another like off-label. It can help some people with sleep. Used a lot in restless legs that we see. So it is a very effective thing for some people.
So, you know, Melissa says something. She says, I fall asleep fine. A couple hours, I'm wide awake. It's getting to a point where I can barely do my job. And I think that's really, you know, that's the concern with all this, right? You're driving the next day, you're taking care of kids, you're trying to go to do your work, you're trying to have clarity in a meeting. I don't know how old you are, Melissa, but, you know, brain fog can kick in. But just pure exhaustion in that next day. And I worked in news for a long time where my hours were wonky, and I'd be like, I'll have a Red Bull. And I know somebody like you is like, oh my gosh, please don't tell me that. But or coffee, or try to ramp up the caffeine, completely defeats the purpose for the long term. So what do you suggest to somebody that is doing that? Do you let yourself get so exhausted so that that night you might have a fighting chance?
Yeah, that's why we try. It's not about like trying to exhaust yourself completely, because that also makes you almost tired but wired for some people. So I'm not anti-coffee at all. Some of my patients will see me drinking a coffee on sessions with them. Like, I'm human. You know, in the morning is fine up until about 2 p.m. ish if you're going to bed at 10 or 11 at night. But you do want to work on not napping, limiting the caffeine, and going to bed later if you're someone who does struggle with going to bed, falling asleep earlier. Getting that appetite essentially for sleep and not taking stimulants can really be helpful. Now, in your case, because I talk with people in the news all the time about the shifts and shift work, that's a struggle, right? Sometimes you have to have caffeine to get through if you're working rotating shifts or working nights, and you have to, sometimes working with someone to help you come up with a tailored plan can be more effective in the long run.
Okay. How do you get your mind to stop working at night?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of things. So one, like I was saying, sometimes going to bed a little later weirdly turns it off. Like you might just be going to bed too early. That's easier said than done for some people. Other things are journaling, writing things down, to-do lists. But my favorite thing that doesn't work right away is meditation. And
we talked about that.
Yeah, most people do meditation as like a fall asleep to sort of thing. There's all these great sleep meditations, but the problem is you're not actually practicing meditation when you do that. So if you sit for 5 to 10 minutes during the day, you get better at noticing when your brain's just super loud and letting it go. So doing that more helps you at night to be able to then soften that busy brain. It works very well for many people. It's just people don't want to put in the effort to do it every day.
So if you say to somebody, look, you're going to do the bare minimum, when would you do that? Would you do it in the middle of the day,
toward the end of the day, and how long?
Wherever, I'm a big believer in whatever works in your life. You're not going to get more bang for your buck at any time, as long as you're actually not falling asleep to it. That's the goal. If you fall asleep to it, you don't get the exercise. Like going to the gym, falling asleep while weight training, that's not helping you.
Right.
Same sort of thing. You need to do it during the day. Whenever you can do it, you're strengthening that mental muscle to help you.
You know, I know you've talked about sleep for a long time. I know we went through this time period where we were all bragging about the lack of sleep we could exist on, right? It has to be interesting and exciting for you to see that this has become like, top of mind literally for people now, and now they do it, they focus on it, and they're very aware of it. But I think that that's a good thing to see. I'm hoping that the menopause conversation does that too, and sleep is obviously in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote my book. It came out, The Women's Guide to Overcoming Insomnia, came out in 2019. I started writing it in 2016, 2017. But even then, the menopause conversation wasn't a thing. I was just trying to figure out what population do I deal with the most, and it's women. That just in those few years, the explosion in just sleep health and women's sleep and women's health makes me so happy, because for so long, women were just told, don't worry about it. It's normal. And it really shouldn't be that way, because you do start to have trouble functioning. It's a huge issue.
Yeah, it really is. I like that you call it sleep health, because I feel like it makes you feel like you can do something positive about it, and you're not something wrong with you. Like I always worry about those words, that make you feel like there's something wrong with you. Yeah. And so when you say sleep health, it just feels encouraging. Like when we're doing that, we're eating right versus diet, these words that we kind of learned to stop using and replace with something else. But sleep health really is something to focus on. Is there a certain age that you see people start coming to you more? I mean, I know you said women, but is it the perimenopause age, or are you seeing people in their 20s and 30s? Because I feel like the world is so noisy right now with social media and everything. I can imagine it's gotten younger for you.
Yeah. Pre-pandemic, it was definitely women in perimenopause. Yeah. Now I'm seeing more and more women coming to me after just having had a baby, and the baby sleeping well throughout the night, and then they don't continue to sleep well. So it's like I'm always listening out for the baby to wake up, but the baby never wakes up because they're sleeping fine. So there's that level of stress I'm seeing in women a lot of times. And I'm seeing, like you said, younger and younger. So I'm seeing 20-year-olds, teenagers that are just being more thoughtful about their sleep, and they want to be almost proactive about it because they know it could be down the road, and they don't want to necessarily start sleep aids at that time. So it's very promising to know that people are really thinking about it in different ways.
Yeah, I could not agree more. All right, let me do another question here. Frank says, I have so many dreams now when sleeping, not sure why, and if that's what's actually making me so tired. It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So dreaming is a healthy thing that we all do throughout the night. Some people remember it more than others. But if it's impacting your ability to feel like you're getting refreshing sleep, and we call it vivid dreaming, and it's happening a lot during the night, you might want to see a doctor about it, because sometimes medications, even melatonin, can cause that for some people. So medications, and also things like sleep apnea, snoring at night, can also worsen that. And we see more of that in perimenopause. So if it is impacting your quality of your sleep, definitely talk with someone.
Somebody talked about I'm suddenly gaining weight. Is the correlation with lack of sleep and weight a real correlation? I know we hear a lot of these different studies, and then there's new information coming out, but what is the correlation between those two things?
Yeah, so when you're not getting sleep, even after a night or two, what happens is you have an imbalance in two hormones that come out in your brain. So one is ghrelin, and that's the go hormone. That's what makes you hungry and want to eat more. And then you have less of something called leptin, which makes you eat less and say, I'm full. So you have an imbalance. So your brain is essentially now telling you, eat more, even though you probably don't need to, and you're not getting the full signal as much. And what do we do when we're not sleeping well? We want high fat, high sugar food to give us quick. And that's what starts to happen. And you start to put on weight on top of that.
And I know a lot of people during the pandemic said, I have to have a glass of wine before I go to bed. I have my glass of wine. Just have one. Have a glass. But I've noticed recently, I did go through a period where I was like, alcohol would make me sleepy, and now it's like I feel my heart racing as a result of it. So I don't know if that's sugar or what it is. But what do you recommend that, or do you recommend that that's just not to keep that away from your nighttime?
Alcohol really does mess with people's sleep, even if they don't think it does. really does. So we try to avoid it within 3 hours. Now, that being said, I'm also a realist. If you're going to go out minor once in a while, fine. Just make it the exception, not the rule, and know that your sleep might get a little messed up from it.
White noise or water? White noise or white noise? Maybe water sound. Maybe water sound.
I prefer just white noise. So
yes.
the and noise, water can be more inconsistent. So we do. I mean, there are people who like rain and all that sort of stuff. But traditionally, we like that white or pink or brown noise. It's all just much more of a consistent at different frequencies kind of noise.
Like water makes me feel like I have to go to the bathroom all the time.
Exactly.
Just
anything inconsistent. Yeah, in the bathroom, it's not helpful.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want people to know where to find you and where to find your book too, because I just think that it's so important to have all this in one place. I interviewed you for my books. I'm so thrilled because I've just tried to make sure we have the top leaders in this space all together, so people can find information about each one of them. But where can people find you?
So first and foremost, you can find me at Sleep Doc Shelby on Instagram and a little bit of TikTok, although I'm dabbling in TikTok.
We'll get you more on TikTok.
Every Wednesday, I do an Ask Me Anything. So if people have questions that they didn't get answered, ask me there. I'm going to do that again tomorrow. And then I have, you can go to my website, drshelbyharris.com, and I'm in practice in New York, and I see people over telehealth all the time.
Great.
And you can get my book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's the Women's Guide to Overcoming Insomnia.
Wonderful.
So you can find me.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, I will be in touch. I thank you for this. Everybody, I will make sure and post everything so you can find Dr. Harris, and you can get over to the website and get a copy of her book as well, because I feel like this conversation just starts to heat up.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you. All right. Have a good night.